So, where to begin? I grew up religious in some way. So, I grew up religious, but I'm going to share now my story with you guys. This was supposed to be a solo video, but I'm not finding time in my day, so I have to do it this way, or I will not find the time. Right, Abhiram? So, I grew up religious, actually. I grew up believing in God. I grew up with, my father instilling in me some Christian values, some godly values. And those godly values, as weak as they were, because honestly, we didn't have, we didn't have really a deep spiritual understanding. But we knew that there was a God, and that if you do right by God, He at least will not punish you, and if you, and He can fulfill some of your desires and wishes as well if you please Him. So that was like pretty much the basis of our understanding. So I used to play baseball, and I would go and I'd make the sign of the cross before I go hit the ball, and I'd be like, Jesus, please help me hit this ball. I can think of a million other prayers now that I'm saying, what, I wish I wasn't praying to Jesus to help me hit a ball, but better than not praying to Jesus. So that was my pretty much religious upbringing. But naturally, as you all probably know, when you get educated at least in the American or Western schooling system, they're promoting more theories, things like evolution and so many other things. They put prominence on the physical world and how you can measure the physical world, rather than what was always classical understandings, spiritual understandings. Pretty much the modern scientific system is whatever the senses can perceive, this is science. And then and if not our senses, whatever our senses can perceive via technology, this is what we promote. But actually, as we scientifically understand, the senses are extremely limited. And so, you are going to get a very small picture of reality. Actually, the number is close to 0%, because if you're trying to perceive infinite reality with a quantifiable, limited set of senses, you're only going to be able to pick up 0%. So anyway, eventually though, this indoctrination in me definitely turned me away from God. It took many years, some years, but slowly and slowly, every year, getting educated in this way. What is this baby doing?
Yeah, he likes thumbing.
My son is joining us for the video. So,
no screen.
Yeah, sorry. So this, this took its toll on me, and then eventually I found myself not only not believing in God, losing faith, and then altogether turning away from God, even to the point where I felt duped, And then it didn't help that, you find out things like your parents lied to you about Santa Claus. If in India, I don't know, you guys, you don't have Santa Claus, do you? Yeah. So anyway, in the West, they make up a bunch of lies for holidays. Like, oh, Santa Claus is giving presents. The Easter Bunny is hiding eggs. It doesn't even make the Tooth Fairy is. So you start learning that everyone's lying to you. You start learning that everyone's lying to you. So the next thing you know, you jump to the conclusion, the priest is lying. Everyone, all these people in history are lying. And it's a big conspiracy. And then I became like a conspiracy theorist for many years. So, yeah, it's the truth. So then, by good fortune, I really hit a rock bottom in life, So I was convinced by this point that, one, there's definitely not a God. Can't be a God. That's crazy, And I believed in the modern atheist saying that's like saying there's like a flying spaghetti monster and things like that. I don't know if you've heard of these.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, the popular atheists. This is like a like, these are like things they say, like the sky daddy, and then there's like, just to say there's a God is equivalent of saying I could say there's a flying spaghetti monster, and we have just as much proof that, so they're saying like this. So anyway, I actually began arguing these things, but still always in my heart, I wanted there to be something more than the, 9 to 5, work till you die type of social paradigm that I was getting into in college. And I was just like hating it. I was hating going to classes all the time. I was hating, like, I'm training to do something that I don't want to do the rest of my life. And I'm just like, what the hell is this? So I was hoping, like, some, like, mystical event was going to happen. I still had, like, some hope, at least maybe something can happen. Like the Mayan calendar was ending in 2012, and I was really hoping, like, I really hope something, like some reset happens or something. So actually, though, interestingly enough, I had a prayer that there would be a huge shift on that day, and little did I know that my prayer would be answered. Even though I didn't believe in God, I wasn't praying directly, but I was just like hoping, some hope. And so, interestingly enough, I was starting to get into psychedelics and things like that in college. And my mind, I was kind of opening up to different paradigms other than what society said, other than what the mainstream is saying, other than what, actually, I got to the point where whenever the mainstream said something, I thought, like, what? They have some agenda, they're lying to me. It's probably the opposite of that. So I started, really looking into ancient knowledge, wisdom, teachings of Buddhism and meditation and even yoga, things like this. I started looking into these things, but still I didn't believe in God. And even it was so much to the point, I would get in arguments with people who did believe in God, being like, how could you believe in God? How does this make sense? And I would debate people, cousins, family, friends, like this. And I became actually antagonistic to God. And so naturally, actually, I'm going to share a verse from the Bhagavatam, because this is supposed to be Bhagavatam class, even though I'm sharing this how I came to Krishna consciousness video. I'm still also, just so you know, this isn't going to be your typical video, because we're also simultaneously having Bhagavatam class at the ashram. But this verse actually really captivates what was actually happening in my life. And then I'm going to tell you a story about how I realized that actually indeed there is a God, and that I should become conscious of God, which is what ultimately led to Krishna consciousness. So this verse goes, you can chant along with me. Bhayam dvitiya biniveshatasya biniveshatasya isharapetasya viparyayo smriti tanmaya yato buddha abhajetang bhaktyayaka yesham gurudeva tatma. So Bhayam is fear. And we're all actually in a fearful situation in this world. And why does fear arise? Syad, it's dvitiya biniveshita. We become absorbed in separateness or dualism. Instead of seeing the unified understanding how everything is connected, and that actually everything's under God's jurisdiction, and then one would never have to fear. If one truly understood that everything was connected, and that everything is perfectly arranged by God, there'd be no fear at all in one's life. The reason fear arises is because we are absorbed in dualism, thinking that things are separate and things are, it's my job to try and change all the separate circumstances of this world. And so we become very fearful. We try to impose our own separate desires instead of on what is the will of God, what is actually happening. So we become absorbed in dualism. Why? Isha rapitasya viparyayo smriti. So what's that mean? Isha is the controller, the supreme controller. Apetasya, we've turned away from the controller. Just like I was telling you in my past story, in the beginning I believed in God. But naturally we have a society and an education system that's turned away from God And in actually, for instance, like the theory of evolution, which is like very much prominent, the whole they were excited to promote this theory in the 1800s. Why were they so excited? Because they were tired of the church's controlling paradigm. And pretty much really what it came down to, I forget, I think one of Charles Darwin's associates.
We came from like basically from monkeys and that. Right?
Yes, it's the evolution theory. We came from monkeys, and no, we came from like one, cells, and then cells evolved to the next one, and every species just an evolution of like a, some type of amoeba type of thing. So this is the evolution theory. It's actually unscientific, but why did it get prominence? Is because ultimately it gave an alternative to a control system. And what was the main thing about actually was one of the reasons Darwin and his associates were excited to promote this theory is because it actually gave them the tools to become sexual libertines. It gave them that's what they really wanted. They wanted to have a more free sexual life, and especially in the 1800s, the church had a pretty good grasp on, no, this is morally wrong, God will punish you, and things like this. And so they were tired of this paradigm. And so they had kind of the bias of thinking, yes, there must not be a God, we'll prove it. And then they had, there's also some fraudulent elements as well. They put fraudulent, markings of fetuses and things like that, but actually they were drawn up inaccurately and things like that. So there's a lot wrong with this. But what happens? People turn away from God. Viparya, because we actually misidentify with who we are. We think we are something temporary, this body, this family, this situation. But indeed, we can just objectively look, no, we're totally not this thing. My body's changed my whole life. So anyhow, smriti is it's coming from asmriti. Viparya yosmriti means asmriti, we've actually forgotten who we are. We don't remember what we actually are. So this is our problem. How did that happen? Tanmaya. Through his tan is that Isha, that same controller. Krishna's Maya, his illusory energy. Because remember, everything's connected. Even to go into illusion, how evil arises, how unfortunate things arise, and this is also part of God's plan. This isn't like so anyway, I didn't know any of these things. So yato means therefore, Buddha abhajet tam, the intelligent, the Buddha, abhajet, they worship tam, him, fully. They should worship him. Bhaktyayika yesham, with one pointed devotion unto that controller. How? Through Guru Deva Tatma. Through the Guru, who's actually one's Lord and soul. Through the one who can actually reveal this to you. This actually should be your Lord and soul. So anyway, this is this verse, and it means fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and as his very life and soul. So Krishna has actually spoken this verse in the Uddhav Gita to Uddhav. But he's explaining how this fearful situation of life, why we have fear in life. And then also he's explaining, what the big mistake that we've made. We've turned away from God. And then basically the solution, we should worship God fully with one pointed devotion through a bona fide spiritual teacher or a master, or someone empowered by the Lord who's been freed from this Dvitiya Biniveshita, or this absorption in dualism. And then we could be free from fear. And on top of that, we can have something much more wonderful. So this is I chose this verse because this Ishara Petasya Viparya Smriti was what happened to me. I turned away from God. I had faith in God, very small faith, but it, naturally through an atheistic kind of upbringing, by the schooling system and whatnot, I turned away completely. But interestingly enough, I remember I was telling you, I wanted something to happen on December 21st, 2012. Because I was tired. I was just so tired of life's social paradigm. I hated college. I hated school. And just my whole schooling, I hated it. It just was so boring and this, that, and the other thing. And then on top of that, I wanted something really satisfying. It's not like, you get done with a bunch of, maybe some of you, I don't know, Parth, when you get done with coursework, maybe you're extremely satisfied. But I was never really satisfied. He's very passionate about his work. But, where I was totally less passionate. Yes, I was totally less passionate about my work and what was going on. I was like, God, this is so horrible. So I was really hoping, please something happen on December 21st, 2012. The Mayan calendar's ending. Hopefully the Mayans knew something, that this crappy world is going to change. Maybe there's some kind of science that's going to happen. Right? Yeah, so we'll see. So what ended up happening, actually though, is that me and my buddies, we used to do psychedelic drugs. And the thing that psychedelic drugs do, they kind of manipulate your mind and senses. And what normally you rely on your senses to get some type of perception of reality, they can change that. So I started realizing that, wow, the mind actually is responsible for my perception of reality, more so than what actually is reality. The mind is the thing that actually is dictating what is reality. So I started realizing these things. And that opened me up to a whole different world of possibilities. Well, what is reality? I started asking the good questions. What is reality? What is the meaning of life? What's actually going on here? And so I was, I had some crazy ideas. So I thought, well, if I keep doing these drugs that open me up to these things, maybe I'll figure out life. I'll become enlightened or something. So anyway, I was doing that. But one of the drugs that was floating out there, and it was really interesting, I hadn't tried it yet, was called DMT. Now, I'm not saying you should try drugs, but actually at this stage in my life, as an atheist who completely was hedonistic, thinking that if I have the more sex, drugs, and rock and roll I have in my life, I'll be happier this way. So by that was my conviction at that point. So actually the drugs helped me make some realization. So what happened actually is this DMT was offered to me, but I didn't even know. I forgot about the 2012 Maya end of the calendar. But it was offered to me on that day, and I was just I didn't care about that. I didn't even know what day it was. I was just thinking yeah, I want to try that drug. So I went to my friend's house, and he had this drug, and he was kind of telling me, because he'd done it before, and he says, let Katha, see, don't block out Katha, right? So he was telling me what this drug will do, and he's like, you're gonna lose control of your body, and you're gonna fall back. And I was I've taken drugs before, but I never had anything have made me fully lose control of my body. So I actually didn't believe him. I was like, yeah, I'll see. Maybe for your weak mind that'll do like that, but for my mind, I can handle anything. Yeah, because we're proud, such pride, arrogance and pride. So anyhow, but he was saying, you have to take 2 hits. You won't get the full thing unless you take 2 hits. I didn't even know what the heck I was expecting. And now I break down the experience, and I'm like, oh, this thing is forcing me to have a death. But I didn't realize what it was. I was just trying to get the high that everyone talks about when they do this drug. So I said, all right. And just so you know, what is this drug? It's actually a natural chemical compound that's found in all living matters. You can literally make it from grass. Yeah, a lot of people, they do that. They'll get grass and they'll freeze the grass and they'll over and over again process the grass down. And I mean, Piyush is, when next time he mows the lawn, he's not going to take all the lawn clippings and take all the lawn clippings and, you know. Anyway, you have to do it in a very scientific process. It's not so easy, but it is a very natural, and actually it's the natural chemical compound in other type of spiritual traditions, shamanic traditions in specific down in Peru. You know, so ayahuasca, you might have heard of it. They make these things. So anyway, it actually had some type of spiritual, and they called it it went on the street. You know how drugs have like street names like blow and dope and things like that. They called this the spirit molecule. That's what was the, you know. So I was like, well, what is this thing? All right, I'm in. And the thing is also, it was touted those who do it have an out-of-body experience and a spiritual experience. But I was an atheist, so I was like, no. You know, because remember, I would argue atheism. How can you have you are this body, you can't be out of the body. If you're out of the body, then no. Just that was my conviction. So anyway, so I knew what I was getting into, and I was like, you know what, I'll smoke this and I'll realize exactly what reality is. I'll figure out what's really going on here. Why are people thinking like this? Well, lo and behold, how arrogant I was. We set up some plumbing pipes. You had to go to, he set up, when he told me how to make my own piece, he literally, we got like plumbing pipes, and we like vaped out of this plumbing pipe, this thing. And you can only vaporize it. If you smoke it, you'll burn it and you'll kill it, and you won't be able to take the drug. So you had to make some contraption to vaporize it. So it was really scientific. But anyway, so I do it. I remember as soon as I did it, the whole 3D reality that I know just immediately collapsed. I was sitting there assisted by two of my friends, but then all of a sudden, they became almost like 2D alien dimensional figures. I was far out, and I knew they were talking to me, but it was weird because what they were saying was like, all I heard was like, like I kid you not, that's what I heard. I heard like
they say light codes. That's how they speak, right? Like the Aztecs and Mayans. That's how they.
I have no idea. What I'm telling you, I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard like little alien language, but psychically I knew they were telling me to take another hit. So I was like, all right, you know. And if I didn't have them encouraging me, I would have been like, hell no, I'm done. Actually, every time I ever tried to do this drug again, because I tried a few more times, it was so scary after that first hit that I never could get the stones to do the next one. You know, I didn't have the ability to do it. So anyway, they somehow got me to take another hit, and I took another hit, and then that was it, like lights out. Like I'm losing the ability to even keep opening my eyes. So they told me this would happen. I'm sitting on a couch, I go back in the couch, and I go inward at this point. And so from there, I didn't know what was happening, but now understanding a little about the yoga system and how the nature of where the soul is in the body, the channels of energy running up the body, I actually know what happened now, but at the time I had no idea what happened. So anyway, I went back, I fell practically, like in a meditative sleep, and inwardly I'm seeing thousands of eyes looking towards me. Eyes, thousands of eyes, like a tunnel of eyes I was in, and I'm just looking up, and I somehow knew that these eyes were all like within my body, and they're looking at me, and I was like, where am I? What is this? And then all of a sudden I'm looking up, and I'm moving up the tunnel of eyes, and I'm like, where am I going? And I look up, and there's a white light at the end of the tunnel. And they talk about this with death. There's a white light at the end of the tunnel, and you go towards the light. Anyway, I thought this was all like crazy stuff, but nope. Here, indeed, a tunnel of eyes, all looking towards me, white light, end of the tunnel. And I'm like, no, I'm not dying. I cannot die. And you feel it. You die. Like you feel that you like die on this day. Or when you do this thing and that it gets to such a point, you actually feel death. And so what happened is I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop. I didn't want to go. I was like frantic. My soul was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But just can't control it when you take that much.
This like DMT is actually released when you're about to die. So
What?
DMT is actually naturally released when you're about to
Yes,
die.
yes.
You take birth and that's why you.
Yes. So this DMT actually, when you're born and when you die, it's naturally released in high levels in your brain. But other than that, it's never released like that. It's released in very little amounts when you dream. But never, only time it's released in high amounts is when you're born and you die. So that's how they got the idea of like, okay, let's make a drug out of this. So, but indeed, it stimulates or forces the death experience. And indeed, I went through that tunnel of light, and now I'm just in a completely different environment. 3D is no longer a thing in this environment. We see things through 3D because that's the tools we're given to see stuff. But out wherever I was, through the tunnel of light, things weren't in 3D anymore. They were in maybe hundreds, thousands of dimensions. I can't explain it other than definitely not 3D, definitely not like this. So anyway, I'm blasting through some cosmic warp hole tunnel thing, and all of a sudden as I'm traveling at very high speeds, I don't know how, but these beings just start popping up next to me. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? But I'm just like completely stunned. I'm just like observing at this point. That's all you could do is just, you're in such a stunned state. You just, all you can do is observe. You're just so overwhelmed. That's all that can be done. So anyway, I was really overwhelmed. These beings came, but somehow I knew they weren't mean. They weren't bad beings. They weren't like going to kill me or anything. They were just, I already think I'm dead anyway. What's happening? So anyway, they just popped up next to me, and they just like kind of just joined me for the ride as we're blasting through a warp hole tunnel thing. Again, 3D, don't know what's going on. I couldn't even understand what was happening. Still don't understand what was happening. But the next thing I know, we stop, and I look up. Where did we go? And there's like this giant being, and I was just looking into this being, trying to understand, what is this? What is this? That was my experience, and I'm just looking, and I'm seeing so many beautiful, like pyramid-like bending dimensional shapes, and there's so much beauty, so much radiance, and I couldn't even believe it. But what ended up happening was then I was just completely flabbergasted at this seeming infinite nature of this being. I can't find the end of this being. And then all of a sudden my life flashed before my eyes, and memories came to me. And what were the memories actually in that very vulnerable state? Well, even before that, I started feeling a deep humility, that like, I'm such a fool. I'm so arrogant. I think like, I thought I knew so much about life. I thought I knew so much, but actually here I am before this giant cosmic being, and I'm nothing compared to this thing. I am nothing. And I had this deep humility and this deep sense of arrogance and deep sense of foolishness. And that was really transformational for me. But then I felt ashamed. I couldn't even look towards the being anymore, because I was just like, I'm such a fool. I was very repentant. I was feeling so sorry. Like, I thought I knew so much, but here you are, like some incredible cosmic mystical being that I was an atheist, and I was like a proud atheist. So then I'm like, and here I am, and all these memories came of all the times I tried to turn people away from God over and over again. Like my dad, he was one of the memories. My friend Chris was one of the memories of just different, even my little cousins, these three girls. I was, not in a good place. I wasn't encouraging people towards God because I was convinced it wasn't real. But here I am now having a spiritual experience, and it was revolutionary. And I'm feeling so ashamed, and I just felt such a deep shame and a deep sorrow, and actually a deep desire to make it right. I effed up my whole life. I was completely wrong. Like, I have to make something right now. And I think that's all the whole experience, or kind of God's arrangement, however he appeared to me in such a way. That's all that they wanted from me. And just how I came there, I went right back down. Like blasting back down. The same beings who took me up there, they took me back down. And then I went somehow back right into the tunnel of eyes again. I'm seeing all the eyes around me. And then I'm just looking up. And then all of a sudden, somehow or other, I came back to this body. And I had a thought. Where am I? How am I back? And as each thought came coming, it literally felt like a tentacle, wrapping onto me. And then another thought came, and it was like another tentacle. And it's weird because if you look I somehow knew it was my brain. I saw this tentacle thing it was really frightening, actually, this tentacle monster. But it's my brain. The brain is locking the soul back in the body. And every thought that came, another lock, and I'm just tightly getting locked back in the body. And then next thing you know, I was, this was my experience. It was pretty wild, huh? but after this happened for, a few minutes of each thought locking me deeper and deeper back into the body, I felt completely locked back in, covered over. And then I just had a voice from within that said, "You can open your eyes now." So I opened my eyes, I came back, I see my friends, they're like, "Whoa, man, what happened?" And it was December 21st, 2012. Yeah. So it was December 21st, 2012. So in America, a Christmas tree is often up in people's living room. And I'm seeing this Christmas tree, and it's just wong, 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 wong. So it's really tripping out. And then it slowly stabilized, and then I was the most relaxed I've ever been in my whole life in meditation. I was just and the first 3 words that came out of my life were, "Oh my God." And so that I used to do that sometimes, because I had that initial belief in God. So even though I was an atheist, my parents used to make fun of me because if I got scared or something, I said, "Oh my God." And they're like, "You don't believe in God." And I'm like, dang you, But anyway, the first 3 words I could say was, "Oh my God," because now I definitely believed in God. There must be something beyond my understanding. So anyway, that was the beginning. I won't get into too much detail because I got into all kinds of crazy philosophies after there. I was just I started studying everything. What could that be? Yeah, Osho, all kinds of stuff. So, but I started studying all kinds of spiritual traditions, and I knew there was a spiritual reality. There was an underlying reality that my senses couldn't pick up. I knew that now without 100. No, Piyush, I didn't hear.
I didn't want to disturb you.
No, you'll disturb me back there. So now I knew for 100% that there is a reality beyond the limited senses of my body and my limited perceptions of things. I 100% knew that now, and that's, well, what do I do about this? So now I started studying different cultures, Buddhism. I started studying Egyptian mysticism, ancient Christianity, ancient Judaism. I just really wanted to know. And it was a really hard time for me. My girlfriend at the time, we were together because sex, drugs, and rock and roll were the meaning of both of our lives. And now here I am, saying none of this matters, all this other stuff. There's a deeper thing in life. And she's she already kind of opened me up to the idea of God, but she just couldn't handle it. No. I'm going to California, you should come with me. And I'm like, no, definitely not going to California. I gotta figure out this thing that's happening. So anyway, we ended up breaking off. And that was really painful for me, really painful. But now that I look back, thank God it happened, because it would have happened inevitably anyway in another way. It wasn't like she was the one. I'll try to be kind how I said, but she wasn't the one that I was supposed to, marry and have some type of long-term solution with. But anyhow, so it was a really painful time. But I started studying 3-4 years of this, studying, figuring things out, going up and down. After a while, the prominence of that experience started to fade away, because you get wrapped back up in life again. And I got wrapped back up in life. And I started, falling back in. I stopped drinking for a while. I stopped doing any type of intoxication. I would just try to meditate and figure it out naturally. That's what a lot of people would recommend is meditation. So I started becoming like a meditator. But then over time, the attraction to ladies returned, and then starting to get intoxicated returned. And next thing you know, I'm wrapped back up. But I was convinced, for one thing for sure, I dropped out of college. I definitely am not doing this. I don't want to do this thing anymore that I was doing. I knew that. And then I started getting into, I got to support myself somehow. So I got into, all I knew, the herbs that I was consuming for so many years. I was like, it started like I was living back with my parents and no one else had the herbs. So I was like, well, how do I get these herbs? So I would go and find the herbs, and then no one knew how to get the herbs in my little country town. I was like, well, I know where to get some herbs. I went down to college. So I started being the guy that had the herbs, and that led to one thing and led to another thing. And next thing you know, everything I needed came very quickly and easily to me, and I didn't have to work hard, which was actually a really good thing for my life, because I could actually study. I could actually figure out what is really reality. What's really going on. So I started doing that. Everything came easily, and I started studying every day. What is life? What's going on here? And that led to the study of yoga. That led to the study of Hinduism. And eventually, some years later, I got kicked out of my house because my parents didn't like that I chose the life path that I chose. And I dropped out of college and all these things they were expecting of me, but they were really not happy. So they kicked me out. But I said, no, it's fine. Everything's coming easily to me. I'll just go down here. I live in an apartment. And that was really good and healthy for me for some time. It had its ups and downs and challenges. But I did a yoga teacher training. I was a personal trainer at the time. I was a bodybuilder, actually, at the time. And, because I thought life was all about, being like the body attractive and all these things. But then after that thing, I lost attraction. But the good thing is, through the health and nutrition that I learned, I realized the benefits of yoga, and I was like, well, this is a spiritual thing too. It helps you meditate. I'm in. So I started doing yoga, and next thing you know, I loved it so much. I did a yoga teacher training. And then the yoga teacher training led me to the Bhagavad Gita, actually. And the Bhagavad Gita was life-changing for me. It was the best philosophy that I read to the point. To date, I read everything in the Bible. I read everything, not everything, but all the core teachings in the Bible, the Torah. Even I was studying the Egyptian mysticism, so many things. But then when I read the Bhagavad Gita, I was like, this is incredible. Wow. So I loved it. But it wasn't Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, so the commentaries and everything, and even how it was translated, I had so many misconceptions, thinking that, well, maybe I'm Krishna, maybe, and then things like that, and that maybe what I saw was the real me, in that experience, and I just forgot, so I started getting into Mayavad, thinking like, oh, I'm really an enlightened soul. I just forget I'm caught up in this his tanmaya, his maya. I'm caught up in this thing. So anyway, that was my idea for some time. But what ended up happening is eventually that led me to a music festival, to different meditation groups, different things, and it led me to a music festival where they had, I should say, even before that though, I really liked Krishna. I wanted to be Krishna. I thought maybe I am Krishna. So I really liked Krishna. And I started chanting even the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I listened to this guy, maybe you've heard of him, Piyush, Krishna Dāsa. Yeah. And Krishna Dāsa, he chanted the Mahamantra. And I was like, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then so on. That was my chanting for years. I did. Maybe you've heard of that guy, Krishna Dāsa as well. Yes. So like this. I think that's often people's introduction. So I would chant this all the time now, and I started chanting it. I went to drug festivals. I remember one time I was on mushrooms at a drug festival, and when I was on the mushrooms, somehow or other, this mantra came to me, and I just, for the next 4 hours on the mushrooms, I was just chanting in my mind the Maha Mantra the whole time, and everything I did, I would only do it along with chanting to the Maha Mantra. And so over the time, I started developing a relationship with Krishna and a desire to know more about Krishna. And one of my, you could say, drug buddies, or one of my meditation spiritual group buddies, he had a Krishna book, but he gave me another book called Be Here Now by Rāma, Krishna Dāsa's friend. But I wasn't that into reading at the time, So I was like, I don't know. I already know what drugs can do, but I'm like, there's something more than what drugs. But he was it was talking about how drugs kind of open you up to the deeper parts of reality. So I was like, okay, I'll read it. But I never ended up reading it. And then he got pissed, and he was like, I want my book back. And I was like, okay, I'll give you your book back. But I wasn't very reliable because I was smoking a bunch of weed. So, anytime he asked me, I forgot. I forgot to give the book back. And then he says to me, you like Krishna, don't you? I said, I love Krishna. He's like, I got a Krishna book. I'll give you the Krishna book if you give me my book back. And I said, Krishna, huh? I want to know more about Krishna. All right, deal. So then I was focused, and I was like, Krishna, huh? Fine. And I gave him the book back. And then he traded me an old 1970s, not that Krishna book, but the tall one, the tall gray 1970s Krishna book. And I didn't realize, it was only volume 1. I didn't realize there was another volume. And I started reading that book, and that was the first time I came in contact with Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada's book started smashing all of my ideas. And at first I didn't like Srila Prabhupada. I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, would you just go to the side and just talk about, tell the story of Krishna, stop talking about so much philosophy. I just want to hear the story of Krishna. I don't want to hear all this other things. Because he would fill in a lot of, in the pastimes of Krishna, he would give the context. And I hated the context. Because it literally made me realize everything that I was prioritizing in life was stupid, and that the real pleasure was in pure spiritual life, being free from sense satisfaction. Well, anyway, I really didn't like that, because still at this point I wanted to receive enlightenment through sex and sense gratification, and I wanted all of these things. So anyway, ultimately, though by the end of the book, though, I went through all of Krishna's pastimes and his explanation of them. I had as chapter by chapter went by, I started to develop more and more respect for him. Even though I just wanted to know about Krishna, I didn't really care for him at all. And at first glance, I thought, no, he's too serious, and there's no way he can be happy like this. But I started realizing maybe he knows something, and how can he be this convinced? How could he have pleasure without sex? I couldn't even fathom. Sex is this is the highest pleasure. There's no way that he can but he just kept at it in the book, and by the end of the book, I was just I developed a respect for him, and I really enjoyed the pastimes of Krishna too, and I wanted to know more about Krishna. So lo and behold, at my hippie music festivals, I was working for a vegan food truck thing. We would go festival to festival. It wasn't really a food truck, but we would do catering at festivals and stuff. And then lo and behold, there was a devotee table, and I saw a statue of Radha and Krishna, and I was like, all right, let me go, let me check it out. And so I bought it. I gave my last $25 for it. But then I saw they had books, and I saw, oh, it's the author. I read a book, and I told him, hey, I read a book by the guru. I said, and I told him I was with some girl that I really shouldn't have been there with. Again, this was my problems. Before I met my wife, I had many of these problems. You can avoid these problems if you'd like. You know, if you have the right mindset, then the Lord will actually bring you the perfect girl that you need if you're meant to be with a girl in this lifetime. But if you're like me and try and always force things, and then you end up with the wrong person, and then you have to find your way out of the situation. So anyway, I was again with another wrong person. But Krishna showed me very quickly with this one it was wrong. But I actually realized that, oh, this isn't such a good arrangement. And when I was with the devotee, I realized, I said, you know, I really, really respect this guru, but I can't follow everything that he's like saying. I have just too many like attachments. And I was like kind of hinting at the girl next to me is, you know, she's the attachment. But anyhow, he said, no, don't worry. He's like a young kid. I never met him again. I don't even know where he is. He might not even be a devotee anymore. I don't know. But this boy, he was just like a young kid. He was just like, had a buzzed head. He was like a little chubby, but he was like a nice young guy. And he's like, oh, don't worry about that. You know, just keep chanting and like everything will be like perfect. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. So then he, you know, typical devotee response. And then I was like, I heard that he had this guru. They only had little books on the table. I heard this guru has a Bhagavad Gita. I was like, do you have that? And it was on the table. And he pulls out underneath the table like a Bhagavad Gita, as it is. I'm like, wow. Oh, and it's like, oh no, though, but I just gave you all my money for the statue. He's like, don't worry, just take it and you can come back and give me money later. And I was like, all right, that's a good deal. And I did. I went back and I gave him money later. And I just kind of had that Bhagavad Gita for a while. But I was still reading other things. I read Autobiography of a Yogi. And that like taught me about all the mystical experiences that yogis can have and things like that. So I started getting, like, I was growing spiritually. But I wasn't ready to pick up that Bhagavad Gita. It just was too daunting. So, but I was in, and I am like a perfectionist. I'm very systematic. I have to finish what I was doing before I start the next thing. I'm still like that. But I have a really hard time not finishing something before I do something else. But anyhow, what ended up happening is I was reading the next teaching of Yogananda, which was the second coming of Christ. And the second coming of Christ was teaching you how you can also be like Christ, and have through meditation, and if you understand the wisdom that Christ was teaching, you can also awake your own Christ nature. And I got a lot from it, but ultimately it was dry. I didn't know why it was dry. I mean, Mayavadi is dry. It's a dry, you know, your main focus is absorbing yourself in Brahman. You know, there's no really sweetness in that. It's just like a kind of semi-blissful situation, and there's no misery there, you know. And I used to do meditations on this. But ultimately, it was dry. So when I was reading, and it was hard for myself to keep being inspired to do it. I'm like, oh my God, you know, like just sit here and meditate. And yeah, like you could feel kind of blissful, but it's just like, the mind just wants to do everything else. So anyway, what ended up happening was that I read about Krishna in one of his books about the Bhagavad Gita. He quoted the Bhagavad Gita, and I said, Krishna. And then I remembered, I have this book on Krishna. I should reopen the Bhagavad Gita again. I got that Bhagavad Gita at the festival. And I kind of was like, all right, I'm going to just put this down, but I'm going to go back to this. I just want to flip through the Bhagavad Gita. And I flipped through the Bhagavad Gita, and I started reading, and I started reading, and I started reading. And next thing you know, I realized that what Prabhupada was saying in the Bhagavad Gita, actually Krishna was saying, and he was proving it. Everything Krishna was saying, Prabhupada was showing how Krishna is, you know, and all of the misconceptions that I had about Bhagavad Gita and that about me being Krishna, and how, you know, really, what really surrendering to the self really is, who's the real self, and, you know, who Krishna is. I had all these misconceptions just started to get blown away, and I'm reading more and more and more. And then by the end of the Bhagavad Gita, I was just so captivated and I was so like in that I was like, okay, where are these devotees he keeps talking about? Who are these mystical people, these devotees? And so I actually, by good fortune, there was an Indian guy he ran the health food store near me. And I was telling him I was reading Bhagavad Gita, and he saw me like kind of grow up over the years. And I actually eventually invited him to the temple where he told me to go later on. It was a sweet moment. But he was, he had the health food store, and I would give him all my money to, like give me healthy organic foods and things like that. For years, I was going to him. And he was like, oh, you should go to he had a really like high-pitched voice. He's like, you should go to the ISKCON temple, you'll love it. And he's telling me, if you love Bhagavad Gita, that's where they study. And I said, ISKCON temple, huh? Okay, it's only 45 minutes away. It's in like Tawaka, New Jersey. I'll go. And so I wrote them like an email, like a whole email. And I said, I know I need a guru. I know I want to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'm ready. It's like, if someone wrote me this email, I would just like laugh at them, like, what is this? So anyway, I wrote them an email, like that I really like the Bhagavad Gita. I want to, is there any devotional service that I can do? And they're like, and just like pretty much not answer me, but they just said, yeah, come cook with us on, for the Sunday feast. So I went, that was my first service, cooking for the Sunday feast. But when I went to the temple, it wasn't what I was expecting. And there's one more, verse of Bhagavad Gita I want to share with you. What's for? Yeya tamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama bhart manuvartante manusya partha sarva shaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. And everyone is actually walking my path in all respects. And before, we talked about the original verse. We're all, through Krishna's illusion, we're turned away from Krishna. And these are also Krishna's paths. It's not that the atheists are not also walking Krishna's path, but their path is to kind of be turned away from him. But as I started to surrender unto Krishna more and more and more, I saw some themes in my life happen. So I'm going to share with you. And also I wanted to share with this video that we're making some of these themes that have happened in my life. So when I first went to the temple, it was like all Indian, all Indian. And not only that, they were older Indian, and they're only speaking Hindi. So if you guys are ever trying to, make like a Western person feel accepted, don't do that. don't just sit there and speak Hindi the whole time. Like try and include them in the arrangement. But anyway, not to criticize, but they were actually very sweet and loving to me. But for them, the temple was always only Indians. And, if there's a Western person coming in, or at least it was for so many years now, and Western person, we don't know how to relate to each other that well, So that's why, you see on campus, all the Indians hang out together, all the Western, everyone, all the Chinese, they hang out together. It's just natural. People hang out in their groups because they know how to relate. It's really only in Krishna consciousness that everyone can really start blending. Why? Because we have a unified value system. But other than that, the unified value system is like place of birth, type of body you have, language you speak, and things like that. That's why they all go off. But here, it's different. Our value system is Krishna, so we don't care if you're white, if you're Indian, you're Chinese. You like Krishna, you're in. That's it. So anyhow, like that, we were, I went to the temple, and they were so nice to me. But, it was like, I didn't know what they were saying. They're all speaking to each other in Hindi, and I don't have any friends there. And it's just like a bunch of like old Indian Matajis and Prabhus and things like that. So I was like, all right, I don't know any Hindi, but I know the Maha Mantra. So I just sat there and chopped potatoes. I did make potatoes for like 200-300 people. Chopped potatoes for like hours, doing this thing, that thing, the other. Whatever she asked, I did. Wash the dishes. And actually, by good fortune, eventually, no, it didn't happen that day. But the next time I went there, Yashoda Dulal, you met Yashoda Dulal. He was a part of the cooking group, and he really helped me a lot in the beginning. So many amazing devotees, including eventually meeting my Guru Maharaj, helped me so much in the beginning. But Before I was convinced, actually, though, that I would not come back to the temple. This isn't what I was looking for, you know. I was looking for something that felt very inclusive, and it just didn't seem that way, you know, to me in the beginning. So I said, you know what, I cooked, I tried it out, you know, but I got to keep looking. But I'm about to leave, and they had a program, and I didn't really care for the program. I was like, no, this isn't my thing. I'm not gonna go there. And but actually, one of the guys, and thank God he did. His name was Chinmay, and every time I see him, I like hug him and I touch his feet, and I'm like, if it wasn't for you, I would have walked away forever.
Was in Atlanta temple?
No, this is in New Jersey. I'll get to the Atlanta temple I was telling you about yesterday.
There's one more Chinmay there, right?
What? Actually, this video I'm making is for this Suresh Prabhu that you met in Atlanta. He reached out to me. He's making some channel. So if you're one, I don't know if you were here, but we're making this video. I'm telling the life story. He's making a channel. He wants to hear devotees' life story, so I'm telling. But this is in New Jersey at the time. But he says, get in the car. It's a festival day. It's a festival day. And he said, yes, come on, we're going to Central New Jersey. There's a festival. And I said, festival? I'm like, and I remembering, Yayathamam Prapadya, it's all surrender unto Krishna. You know, Krishna, the whole Bhagavad Gita is just surrender unto me, just surrender. And he said, okay. All right, fine. I surrender. We'll try. You know, I was like, but I was going to go home, maybe play some video games, do this. And I was like, but... all right, just get in the car. I don't know these people. They could take me up and kill me. I don't know, you know. But luckily they were nice. So I get in the car. Chinmay is in the front. His friend, I think Arvind or something like this, is in the front, and then I'm squeezed in the back with two Matajis, and they're all and they're all just speaking Hindi the whole time. So I said, okay, you know. But actually, I remember getting in the car. As soon as we start trying, Namaste Narasimhaya, I was like, what is this? And the first time I heard that prayer, never heard before. So anyway, they're all singing in the car. I was like, wow, this is wild. You know, who are these people? So anyway, I'm getting to know like the Indian culture a little bit. So anyway, I start, I start going down with them, and then finally I get there, and again I enter the temple. I'm like, what is this festival? And now I'm really freaked out. It's hundreds of Indian people. I'm like, all right, more of the Indian thing. Okay, this is it. And then I'm seeing deities. Radha Krishna is I think it's Radha Govinda is in Central New Jersey. I forget. I should remember. These are the first deities that I. No, not Chulan Yatra. It was the boat festival for Jagannath Puri when they take I forget the Narendra Sarovar, I think, and they take them in the lake in Puri, and they made like a little like pool. They got like a pool imported into the temple. The reason they didn't do it at our temple is because the other temple is not big enough to do that. But they got like a pool imported into the temple. It was like once a big church, and then they're like they got like a boat, and they had like Radha and Krishna in the boat. And I never saw that festival ever again, actually. Just my first day, it was the only time I ever saw that festival. So anyway, I'm just like observing, and I'm seeing like people on the altar dressed like this, fanning deities. I'm like, what the heck is this? You know, like, like what is this thing? What are they doing? Statues? They're worshiping statues? You gotta be kidding. You know, like, so I was just like, but I love the book. I love Prabhupada enlightening me, but like, this is like the thing, like, you pump me up for this whole thing to worship statues? Like, yeah, so that's what happened. So anyway, I was like, again, like, definitely not coming back. Like, this is it. Enough is enough. You know, why would I do this again? So anyway, but Chinmay again, I forgot to mention that first temple, best meal I ever had. After I ate, I was just like, I couldn't even believe the food and how good it was. I've never had prasadam like that. And where they made for a Sunday feast, but they would make extra items for like the Rajbhog offering at the temple. And you're eating like what Krishna's eating. Like for only the team who cooks is eating like, and Krishna eats like 10 different varieties of things at the temple. So it was just like an amazing feast. I was like, oh my God. That was so good. So then I'm like really hoping, and he could probably tell I was uncomfortable. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. Whenever you're ready, you just let me know. And he's like, but there's more prasadam. And I was like, ooh, I liked that thing last time. All right, I'll go in there and I'll get the prasadam, and then we're going. And I'm not going to do this anymore. But actually, interestingly enough, I noticed something. In the sea of hundreds of Indian people, there was one white person, he actually looked more like me. He had really curly hair. Good morning. So he looked like me, but he had like curly hair. His name is Dina Bandhu, a really nice devotee. He's been on the Namras podcast a few times. He's a really, really, really sweet devotee. And so I saw him on the altar doing the worship of the deities. And that also kind of turned me off. I'm like, look at this guy. He's white and he's wearing a dress like this. What is he doing? Why would he do that? But then all of a sudden, I go to get prasadam, and again, hundreds of Indian people, sea of Indian people, and I get the prasadam, but then I see there's just like a little section of white people. Just like 3 or 4 of them. It's like, oh, let me go there, That's just natural. I don't fit in, anywhere else. So I went with them, and he was one of the ones in it. Actually, no, he wasn't. He ended up coming later. So I started talking with them, and they were really nice. Just remember this boy, his name's Julian. Maybe he got initiated by now, but I've seen him a few times. And one of their parents, and I was just telling them what I was studying and they really encouraged me. So also you should know this thing, because it helps if you encourage them. When new people come, you really should sit there and encourage them, because they need it. They don't know what the hell is going on here. So anyway, they really encouraged me, and they were also puffing on my ear. Wow, and I was telling them all I knew about the Bhagavad Gita, and I actually knew a lot. I was really into it. And they were really impressed, and they were like, wow, this is amazing, you should come more, and things like that. And I said, yeah, maybe. I was I didn't want to tell them, no, I kind of think this is crazy and weird, so I'm probably not going to come back here anymore. But, anyway, they really encouraged me. And my life sucked already at home. It wasn't, satisfying. So I wasn't, I didn't need much to all right, maybe these people have something. Anyone who's nice to me at this point, I'll be happy with. So anyway, what ended up happening was they encouraged me, and that Dina Bandhu came. And the biggest fear I had at this point is you're going to make me dress like this. And, I'm not doing any of that. That's crazy. But I was kind of telling him, I was like, I really like this, but, I don't want to worship the statues and dress like that and things like that, I kind of liked Bhagavad Gita and all this. And he's like, no, you don't have to do any of that. He really pacified me. That no, you don't have to do any of these things. No, that's just only if you really are inspired you would do something like that. And that made me feel better. I'm like, okay. And he told me you should go to the temple near you, because I took a ride 45 minutes again with them down to this temple. It's in the center of the state, so it was too far for me to go every week. So anyway, he told me, you should go to the temple, give it a shot, you'll really like it. And I said, all right. So I said, I'll go again. And then the next time I went is when it was finished. I was sold. I like these people. And in all the Indians, I realized I really like all the Indians. So, because at first I was I don't know, different cultures, this is weird. For me, at least it was. And so what ended up happening, here it's not all Indian. I mean, Janmashtami was practically all Indian, right? But here, you have a mixture. But in most actually temples across the U.S., it's primarily Indian. Primarily. I mean, some temples are shining beacons of like the Atlanta temple I sent you to. They're very diverse. In Michigan, Harmony Collective, it's quite diverse. But yeah, most are, practically just Indians and maybe 1 or 2 token Western people walking around. So anyhow, not that there's anything wrong with that, because actually the Indians are the ones who care about the temple and maintain it and make sure it's still running and things like that. So naturally, whereas the Western culture can't really appreciate temples very much. It's just not part of our culture at all. So it's natural. But anyhow, I went to the the program, and first things first, they're worshiping a plant. Yes, the Tulsi Arti. So I said, oh my God, they were worshiping Tulsi. What is this? So I said, all right, okay. And they wanted me to bow down, and then next thing you know, circle it, and then I'm watering. I was like, that's weird, but you know what? Fine, I'll just do it. Whatever they're doing, whatever Krishna wants from me, I surrender. I'll do it. Fine. And then they open the curtains, and then then they do the Prabhupada. So now there's the statue of Prabhupada. Sing Prabhupada, and they're singing some song. I liked the singing because I saw it on the wall and I could read it, and I like singing. So I was like, all right, this is fun. And they encouraged me, and they tell me, go offer some flowers. I said, all right, I'll offer some flowers. And then they told me to bow, and I was like, all right, fine, I can bow. I could be a little humble. And then they open the curtains, and then they're all bowing, and okay, we're bowing now. So I'm doing what everyone else is doing. And and then that Namaste prayer is there again, and I'm like, oh, okay, But anyway, they do an arti, and then during the arti, they're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I'm like, oh, I know this one. So I would chant with them loudly, and I would happily, and they would have me dance, and in Indian culture, men will hold hands, no problem. In Western culture, you would never do like that. Never in Western culture, you wouldn't do. But they're holding my hands, and we're going up and down. I say, okay. Krishna, this is what you want, I'll do it. This is what you want, I'll do it. So I started doing all these things, and I joined in on the program, and it was fun. It was quirky and weird and fun. And then they had some class. I don't remember the class that much. I remember doing yoga in the class. I would sit with my feet. Yeah, this is so common for Westerners because they think for them yoga helps them meditate and get some spiritual. So but they don't know, and it's offense to point your feet towards someone. So I was doing that in the class. To just sit there and listen to a class for an hour, that's hard. That was hard for me, Especially, no offense to ISKCON and our speakers in ISKCON, but it's rare that someone is a very, very captivating speaker. It's on the rare side that someone is a captivating speaker. A lot of time you go for the class and you're like, okay, this is an austerity. I got to make it through the class. And it's actually I'm not trying to criticize, but if we really want people to take to this movement, we really need to have something captivating to say, or it's it's going to be difficult. But anyway, so it was an austerity. I would do my stretches, and then afterwards they're like, "Ooh, prasadam again! Ooh, I love that thing. Yes, give me that thing." And they were like, I never had anyone just fill up my plate like that. I didn't realize what they were doing to me, but just as much food as I want for free. Oh my God! All right. And I loved it. It was so good. Everything I ate, I was like, wow. So anyway, prasadam. And then after it was over, I said, I really wanted to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Where is the Srimad Bhagavatam book? I didn't realize the whole set. I just wanted, where's the one book, Srimad Bhagavatam? So anyway, I get there, and I like I said, I was doing an herbal, business at that time, and I had plenty of resources, so I said, I have $100 in my wallet. I could easily buy this book. But I get there, and I talk to one of the devotees, and he says, yes, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. It's $300 something. $300? What kind of book is this? And he says, no, it's it's a whole set. And he shows me the whole set, and I'm like, oh my God. All right, and I was like, can I give you $100 now? I'll give you the rest later. But actually, when I saw that man who brought me to the festival, he saw me purchasing the Srimad Bhagavatam set, and he's looking in horror. And he's like, no. I'm like, what? What's wrong? And the other devotee's looking, what's wrong? He's like, hold on. And he runs, and he gets this devotee named Rāma. Rāma is kind of a business guy. He's a short, little, cute devotee, but he's a business devotee. He must, maybe his Raman Sharma is his name. I don't know if Sharma is a business cast or anything like that, but he's a business guy. He comes in the suit and everything. Always dressed for business. Nice devotee. And next thing I know, he comes back with Raman, and I said, what's the problem? He's like, you cannot buy this. And I said, why? And he says, it's too much, you're too new. I'm like, what? And then he says, no, Raman, And Ramana opens up his wallet and he pulls out $300 and he says, "Here." And I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I've never experienced any type of generosity like that before. Indian generosity is like unmatched. I've never experienced that type of generosity like that. And I was like, "No, I have money. I'll go get it later." You know, because I couldn't fathom in the Western mind, you pay for everything. And, nobody ever gives anyone anything for free. That is never, ever, ever the case in Western culture. So I was just like, and if you do give it to someone for free, someone's paying for it, the tax dollars or something like that. There's, they're extracting it out of you another way. Yes, you have this free service in society, but you're actually paying for it. So anyway, I'll decline this thing. So when he did that, I've never saw any type of generosity like that. He just bought this whole big book set for me. Oh my God. And and he told me, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "You teach me that. And then you teach me that one day." And I said, "I can't promise you that, but I'll read it for sure." And so I ended up, he gifted me a Bhagavatam set my second time at the temple. And then I was fixed. I was so indebted to that I every week I started coming to the temple. Many things have happened since then. I told you guys yesterday, but maybe I'll remember. Yayatamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamiham means as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So a lot of challenges happen in my life, and over again. This will be very long if I continue on too much, but I really wanted a wife. A lot of the sexual desire was still too strong in me. I didn't have, I believed in the philosophy. But I just knew there's no way I can do my whole life brahmachari, celibate. Now I get it. Now I get like why that is such an exalted path. But back then I just couldn't. I was too much in illusion. Too much. Was invested into the senses and their pleasure. Where I believed in the truth, the Vedic truth, but there's just no way I could go the distance. At least that was my conviction. So I would pray. I really wanted like a wife so badly, and I was just trying to figure out how can I find. I didn't want to just like go. What I used to do was go meet ladies and then have inappropriate relationship with ladies, But now I had the conviction that's not going to be good for me. I need to find a wife. I need to find somebody who I can be honest with and all these things. So I tried so many things. By this point, I advanced enough in my devotional service where I realized that I want to only work with devotees. And so I was just there the other day. You got those sweets, that orange sweet came from the restaurant. So anyway, I started working with a group of devotees. Mayapur Chandra, you all met Mayapur Chandra? Mayapur Chandra and all his great devotee brothers over in Newburgh, New York. You guys, I forgot, everyone except you, Parth, went there for the shower and met the devotees there. So very nice devotees. And I was working, but still I had such strong desire. So I would still try and meet with my old home friends and the one girl, my childhood crush, and think, maybe I can convince her. Anyway, so I tried so many things, and Krishna would just block most things. So I said, oh my God. And I had a girlfriend again at the time, but she created a lot of difficulty in my life. And so I realized for sure, like, she would have maybe married me, but I really hope she's not watching. But there's no way I could go through with that, It was just too difficult, and I couldn't convince her that this is important, The Krishna consciousness was important. She liked it. She wanted to support me doing it, but she did not want to participate at all. And so it was very unattractive to me, actually. And so I said, I should get rid of, actually, Keshava Gopal and my Guru Maharaj. I had a guru at that point. I should tell you this story first. They'll be here all day. But how I met my guru was also amazing, because I really wanted to have a guru. I knew this was important. And so when I was asking everyone, how do you find a guru? How do you get a guru? How do you find a guru? And one woman in the Tuaco temple, no one really had a good answer. Oh, you could go here. This guru comes once a year here, this guru comes. And I was like, all right, well, that's not really attractive. A guru, but I can't really talk to the guru. And like, I actually saw gurus before. I went to like hear Radhanath Swami speaking in New York City and things like that, and I went. But it's just like, if everyone, when he's done talking, then everyone's swarming him, wants to talk to him. And I'm just like, I'll never be able to talk to him this way. And even, what will I say? You know, like, so I was really unattracted to the idea of like, you know, the big guru, you know. I was like, that's, you know, even like if Prabhupada was here, I don't know if I would be able to really do it, because I'm like, will he even ever talk to me? You know, like if I want to have a guru, I want to have someone I can actually get advice from, you know. So anyway, I was, how do you find a guru? How do you find a guru? And this one Binapani Mata, she said, if you want a guru, you go before Srila Prabhupada in the temple. Maybe you've heard me tell this story. And you go down in full Dandavat Pranams, like a stick, and you beg, and you cry, and you tell all of your nonsense to him and Krishna, and you beg them to give you a guru. So for 10 minutes straight, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I went down and I just sat there and I begged and I cried. And all of my nonsense that I had in my heart and that I knew was nonsense, I said, I know this is here, but please, I need someone who will help me. And actually, then I just picked up, didn't hear anything, you know. I was like, all right, I did it. And interestingly enough, in that very spot that I begged, 3 days later, when I was doing my morning temple services, my guru, you may know, you guys know Shami Krishi Maharaj? Is he also your gurus? He was there chanting, just chanting. And he had come back from India, and, you know, the Tuaco temple wasn't a thriving beacon of morning bhakti. There was maybe 1 or 2 devotees walking around doing all the services, and, you know, I was one of them. But I was like, oh, another devotee. You know, I didn't know he was my guru. So I started talking to him, and a relationship formed, and one thing led to another. And I realized, I remember the first time he told me, he was like, yeah, I'm actually an initiating guru, but I don't have any disciples yet. And I remember I always like to make jokes, and he would appreciate my jokes. And he's like, oh, well, I'm an aspiring disciple and I don't have a guru yet. And then he started laughing, you know, and then I started laughing. And then, but he never said, yes, I'm your guru, you know. He said, oh, well, we'll see what happens. And so over time, I realized he was my guru, and this, and I'm so grateful actually, because without his guidance in this very crucial stage, very immature stage that I was in, I would have been in lots of trouble. And that led me to meeting my wife. You know, again, you know, if you guys have to go, I have to finish this video, so I'll sit here and I'll talk right to the camera if I have to. But when I met my wife, I had to, again, you know, this is about surrender to Krishna. You know, I knew I needed a guru, I begged for a guru, and then now, and thank God I did that, because when I met my wife, I would have been in lots of trouble if I didn't have a guru, actually. Because in the West, we're not cut out for success in this, we're not cut out for success by the way it's all arranged in relationships, you know. This dating system is not so ideal. So anyway, what ended up happening is that I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, who I knew was not wife material for me. And I remember just like crying on the floor, you know, because at some point she moved on, and she was the type of girl who could move on pretty quickly. And I was like feeling maybe some envious, you know, I've still not found what's for me and anything like that. And I'm just like crying on the floor. I'm like, do you want me to just be like a celibate monk? Is that what you want, Krishna? I've read this 1,000,000 times from you in all of your books, that the path of celibacy is better. Is that what you want? Fine. I don't need a wife. I give up. Who cares? I don't need a wife. I'll be a celibate monk, you know, fine. little did I know there was no way I was qualified for it, and Krishna also knew that, which is why very soon after, again, he sent a wife. But I remember surrendering. If that's what you want, fine. I'll go to work. I'll do everything I'm supposed to do, and I don't need a wife. Fine. But if I only want to do what's right by you, and I promise, if you do give me a wife, I'll only take a wife if she can serve you with me. That's the only way I'll take a wife. And I made that vow to Krishna that day. And then I picked up after crying, and I went on with my life, Only a few weeks later, my wife pops in on a yoga class I was teaching. She was the only one teaching a class. Interestingly enough, I was fasting. I was doing one of the spiritual fasts, an Ekadashi fast. And I was fasting, and she came in on that day. And little did I know, this is, talk about surrender to Krishna. The only reason she was really attracted to me in the beginning was because I was fasting. And she had an autoimmune disease, and she visited an Ayurvedic doctor because she was into yoga. And the Ayurvedic doctor told her that you should fast, but she didn't know how to do it and all these things. I mean, I'm sure she thought I was kind of cute or something, or why would she want to, but she said, "Can I fast with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can fast with me." So all of me and my wife's birth states, she would come to the yoga classes, but I was kind of professional to some degree. And I was like, you're the student, and you shouldn't have, I shouldn't get entangled in some type of crazy thing with this, even though I was very attracted to her. But all of our first dates, I promised this girl I'll fast with her, and fine, we'll do the Ekadashi fast, but we have to, part of the fast was that there's no type of romance. That's not part of an Ekadashi fast, and I would follow the fast strictly because they said you give all these desires are fulfilled. So it was odd because normally when I was conditioned when girl and boy meet, there should be romance. This should be the activity. But now I'm meeting this girl, but we're fasting, we're doing a spiritual fast, so she has to do all the things we do, and we can have romance another time. That was my mood and idea. And so, we did 3 Ekadashi fasts together before we kind of slowly started to, have more intimate feelings towards each other, and it became more obvious to both of us. And and then lo and behold, soon after we started dating. And then actually, part of that, I ended up losing my job with the devotees I was working with. And that was really troublesome because I just met who would soon be my wife, someone, here, and now I have no job, which is not a very ideal situation if you have a wife, or if you have a girlfriend even, if Parth, you didn't have some type of future plans here, Katha might be like, oh, I don't know about this, this doesn't look so promising. So anyway, I was really in a troubled situation, but I said what do I do? And my Guru Maharaj said, you should just come to India. I said, come to India? But I have no job, I have no money and things like that. I have only some savings. And then, but I said, I could try and do another yoga teacher training, and that could help me find a more prominent yoga teaching job, because I was really fixed. This is my profession. I'm a yoga teacher. I really like yoga. I loved yoga teaching. I still love yoga teaching. But, I don't get to do that type of yoga teaching very often anymore. Maybe a few times a year, actually. But anyhow, I ended up going to India, and when I went there, what ended up happening was my Guru Maharaj didn't really like that we were dating and living together and all these things not married. Yeah, if man and wife, or when man and woman are living together, when you mix butter and fire, ghee and fire, ghee melts. It's not that oh yes, no, but I'm a very intellectual, I will not melt. No, it's just natural. So if man and woman are living in one place together, it's a natural response where those types of feelings will arise. So you should get married, actually. I'm talking. So you should get married, especially if you're living together. So anyway, so I would have never gotten married, but we kind of like thought the idea was romantic and cute and kind of interesting, and like, you know, we were kind of both rebellious in rebellious phases of our life. And you know what, like, yeah, but our parents will never allow us to get married, you know. We just met, and there's all kinds of friction, you know, because like, oh, what am I doing? I'm like devotee, kind of like the monk kid isn't like the ideal. Now they love me, you know. I was just there, you know. Now they love me, or at least they've accepted me. But you know, it's not really the ideal situation for most Western parents. That's not what they're thinking they're gonna have their daughter get married to. So anyway, but we just thought, well, maybe we'll just get married in India. And so anyway, our Guru Maharaj said, and we said, yeah, that's a cool idea, but we didn't actually think he actually made all the arrangements for us to get married. And when we went to India after I did the yoga teacher training, that was a whole amazing experience going to India. Really opened me up to so many things. But yeah, the conclusion of our India trip is that we got married. And yeah, but it's interesting, you know, because only 10 months earlier, I was praying for a wife. And 2 weeks later, I met her. And then 10 months later, I'm married already. And for a Westerner, that's like incredible. That's incredible. For a Western person to like be married within 10 months of meeting their wife is like, that's unheard of. But Krishna can arrange anything, you know. But if you're surrendered to Krishna, he'll arrange everything properly. You know, but I to some degree I did. I'm telling you stories in which I took steps to surrender to Krishna, and then he reciprocated. So why? To instill faith that you guys, if you take steps to surrender to Krishna, he'll reciprocate. You know, I was willing to give up the whole idea of marriage altogether, and I said, and if you do send me someone, I'll only marry her if, you know, she'll also devote herself to me, to devote herself to you. With me. And so yeah, then Krishna arranged. And then the last story I'm going to tell is the story I told you guys yesterday, but for the video they did not. But it may be, I don't know if you guys got to understand, but now you understand some context. You know, we spent some years looking for different jobs and places. We tried many things. And this is when, Piyush, we found ourselves in Atlanta. And actually, Suresh from Atlanta, I didn't meet him in Atlanta. I met him later. They met him in Atlanta. But I met his friend, who was Bhakta Matthew at the time, who's now Matsya Prabhu, in Atlanta with all these guys. But yeah, we were living not too far from, like it was 2 hours away from Atlanta, but we were living on a farm, and it just didn't have everything we needed for like a thriving success. We had a retreat there with like the Atlanta boys. We had a few yoga retreats there, but that was about the extent of what we could do there. But ultimately, what did we end up doing is that we started associating with the brahmacharis down in Atlanta, and they're really fired up guys. They're really, really fired up guys. And actually, they were exactly who we needed to associate with at that point in our life, because they were showing us the empowerment that Krishna gives his devotees when you really strictly take to the path and the process. So they were very merciful to us. A couple of them were, you know, you could say a little rough with me, but it was rough mercy, you know, because they're, you know, they really called me out on my nonsense. And actually, they're, you know, the mood is actually they're really like strong preachers, so to say. So you know, we were associating with them for a while, but actually we were about to leave the area because we were just like, you know, this isn't going to work here. We're going to leave. And on Janmashtami, actually, one of the head monk there, one of the head monks, he said, "I got you a job." I said, "You got me a job? I don't want to just work any job." He's like, "No, it's with devotees. It's for a granola company. You'll have a salary. You'll have everything you need." I was like, "Oh my God, really? You know, that's amazing." And it's Janmashtami. Like, what a, you know, what an auspicious day. But actually, that job was meant to teach me the lesson I told you guys yesterday. That job wasn't my long-term solution. And then I'm here because of the lesson it taught me. But anyway, so I said, all right, I'm surrendering, Krishna. That's what you want me to do, I'll do it. So we decided we're going to move to Atlanta. We were going to move to New York, and the next thing you know, we're this last minute, all right, let's move to Atlanta. So we moved to Atlanta, we start working this job, and it was a really difficult arrangement. I thought it would be like magical and mystical. I'm working with devotees, but I got up every morning, and maybe some of you guys can relate. I would do my morning worship, I would chant a few rounds, and then just off to the grind for like 8-9 hours a day. And maybe that's difficult. It was really difficult for me because I couldn't keep myself immersed in my spiritual life like I really wanted to, even with working for devotees. But I knew I had to do it. I have to support my wife. You know, it's a man's duty, dharma, to support his wife. You know, and then also I can support the temple. I can take a little portion of what I'm making and I can give 15-20% to the temple, which was what I'm doing, the brahmacharis. That's why they got me the job there. So you also should give some to the temple. I said, yes, I'll do. So I was doing. But my spiritual life suffered like anything. So I was, you know, really hard for me to do it. But I did it, and I did everything I was told, and I did the best job that I could do. And the boss, you know, they were relying on me. They were happy I was a devotee. I was living with the devotees there, and it was a okay arrangement. But I told you guys yesterday, one of the devotees I was living with, he just had some really interesting ideas about what the way a devotee should do, and he was a little strong and overbearing for me. And what he said was, he yelled at me one time while I was packing the granola, and I was, you know, in factory is life. It's like, boom, 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 next, the whole shift until it's done, and then everyone goes home. But it's just intense. You know, it's not pleasing work at all. None of you are doing anything with a factory. But factory life is extreme. Prabhupada used to say factories are like hell. And yes, factories are indeed like hell. So anyway, it was not what I thought it would be. So, you know, lo and behold, he yelled at me for chanting. I was chanting my morning prayers that I like to chant. We chant here in the morning. And I'd go to the next prayer. And Namo Vishnu Padaya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna. And I would chant like nice, sweetly. But you know, I would chant. I'm not going to sit there and hide my chanting. These guys like want to talk to me, like I'll tell them why I'm chanting. Like I have no problem doing that. At that point, I had enough faith in what I was doing that I could be proud to be a devotee. I don't need to hide my devotional life. But anyhow, or at least, you know, but he started yelling at me. What are you doing? I'm chanting. You know, the Harinam, Eva Kevalam. You know, it's like, you know, chanting's the only way, there's no other way, you know, type of thing to do. And chant the holy name. You know, it's like the best thing we could do, you know. And so he was, I don't know, for whatever reason, he had that conception that you'll disturb them. And I told him, like, well, let them hear the holy name. It's good, you know. And he started, no, just started like kind of tweaking out on me and getting like mad at me. And I was like, and he said, you see what I do? I put my headphones on. I can listen to chanting all I want all day, but I don't disturb anybody. And I was like, okay. And in my heart, I knew. I quit. Nope. It's the only way I could potentially ever get through this thing. And now you're trying to take away my chanting. I just won't do it anymore. You know. So I work up the courage. I go tell my boss the next day. And I told you guys this yesterday, but once I told him that you know what, I came to the conclusion in my heart it was going to put us in a really difficult situation. We were broker than we've ever been. We kind of were financially irresponsible. We went and lived on a farm for a year without making any money, drained through all of our savings. I thought I was going to get unemployment from the COVID thing because I was promised this for some years, but every time I tried to get in contact with them there was some difficulty and they weren't giving it. And it was like a year and a half I had an open unemployment case, even before I went to India that first time and got married. So anyhow, So I was like, really low on money, and I was just like, I don't know what we're going to do if we quit. But we talked to my wife, and we both decided together, you know what, Krishna will take care of it. Krishna will definitely take care of us, and she didn't like it either. She was also working in the factory part-time, and she was cooking for the house we were living at and stuff, and she wasn't like thrilled with it either. So anyway, we decided, yes, like we'll quit, and Krishna will take care of us. Like, don't worry. And I told you this yesterday. I quit, and they understood, and everything was fine. And then next thing I know, I look down on my phone, and I'm getting a call I was waiting for a year and a half. So, you better call me back within the hour, or we're canceling your case altogether. So the unemployment people. So, wow. If I didn't quit that moment, an hour would have passed while I was at work, and I would have missed. She might have canceled the case. Who knows? So anyhow, I quit at that moment, and I look down and see that message. So I call her that day, the day I quit, and I'm tussling back and forth with why, we couldn't, I don't know if you ever had to deal with like unemployment or these people, but you have to pretty much sell your case to them with why they should give you this money. So I sold the case to her the best I could, and next thing you know, she gave me the whole salary for that whole year, all in one lump sum. Probably more after taxes. She gave the whole salary for the whole year. The day I decided to quit my job, the day I decided I don't need money, I just need to surrender to Krishna. And then that's what the result was. She gave the whole salary for the whole year. I've never even had that much money in my whole life, all in once. And so that was actually necessary for even now, this house. We invested a lot of that money in silver, and this house was paid for in a large part due to the investment we made that she had gave, Krishna had gave on this day. So you never know. If you surrender to Krishna, it will never make material sense. It'll never make material sense. Like, I surrender to Krishna, I don't need a wife, I'm fine with no wife. Then he gives a wife within 10 months. Meet her only 2 weeks later than that. I surrender to Krishna. I don't need money. Money is, I don't need this money. I just need you. He's like, okay, here's money. That's why I learned the lesson. I learned the lesson that I just need God, And then Krishna allowed me to advance. Then we come here to Syracuse. So many things have happened. I don't even know how. I don't even know how I met you all. I don't know how we have this house. I don't know how everything is arranging and shaping like this. But, as you surrender unto Krishna, he rewards you accordingly. So, yayatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. So you surrender to Krishna. That's why I'm giving this class. This is for you, Katha, actually. Because these boys, they know already. They know. And the people online, maybe they know, maybe they don't. I don't know. But maybe you haven't come here and got to hear so much from us, but that's our main mission, and that's our main objective. If you surrender to Krishna, everything will work out way better than you ever could have imagined, way better than you could have planned. And I've seen in my life, I'm telling you my life's experience. And so, that is my Bhagavatam class today. Sorry it was so long, but I wanted to do this video for Suresh Prabhu. So I'm doing, and just to remember, that fear, fear is the worst thing we could have in life, to always be in fear. It's only arising from Dvitiya Biniveshita, not understanding the universal connection of Krishna, being absorbed in trying to, all of your own separate objectives, which is why everyone is living a fearful life. Oh no, my job might fall apart. Oh no, this might fall apart. Oh no. If Krishna wills it, the Christians say, thy will be done. So you see, the more you surrender unto Krishna, you'll have nothing to fear. If you actually, absorb yourself in Krishna. In reality, Krishna is the true reality. God is the true reality. That's what I learned, from that drug trip that one time. Is that there was an incredible being beyond the scope of my perception. And if you yourself actually understand this, there will be nothing to fear, and you'll become very intelligent, and you'll worship him fully. And you'll find a guru, you'll find somebody who is absorbed in that consciousness already, and they can show you exactly how to do that. And so, and it might come in different forms. It doesn't have to, doesn't mean your Diksha Guru is going to be the one who reveals everything to you, every single thing. Krishna will appear to you in many different forms, many different Shiksha Gurus, Vartma Pradarshika Gurus to show you the way. He'll, even in the 11th canto, Dattatreya, when he's enlightened, he shows you how the guru is actually appearing in all of the, like a prostitute is one of the gurus, the earth, the sky, fire, air, water, so many different gurus are there. Not to say you ever neglect your Diksha Guru, but, Krishna will reveal guidance through to you as long as you surrender sincerely. So this is our job. This is what Bhagavad Gita is teaching. Just sarva dharman pritija. Just surrender unto me. So this is the video. Oh, it's 10:08 here. So I think it's a good time to end. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you for asking me to do this video. I hope this works. I don't know if it's going to work, but you asked, and so here it is. Hare Krishna.